Carol, this is the first time, amazingly, that we've sat down with you since what seems to be the madness of the back end of last season, where we, I think it's fair to say, enjoyed a trip to Wembley Stadium and then enjoyed a concert a week later. Amazingly, we haven't sat down. First of all, what a few months it's been for the club.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite telling that we haven't sat down, not because I've had nothing to say, as you can imagine, well, as you've heard. We just really haven't had the time, have we? We haven't just stopped. And I think that says something about the whole club. And it's something that Daryl and I talk about quite a lot, is that we haven't stopped. Even when we went to Spain and she thought that we'd sort of really stop and reflect, we didn't have that much time to do it. And then we've come back, and being in this league for the first season is tough. You know, I mean, I've talked a lot about we don't have League One muscle memory. So everything we do is new. We sort of cracked League Two. We knew what, you know, we knew the clubs, we knew what we were doing, we knew what the teams were like, I knew what the boardrooms were like, you know, it was all there. But here, it is all new, which is exciting, but there's a lot of work to it. So we've suddenly got, you know, 3,700 Sheffield Wednesday fans came, and the next week we had less than 150 Forest Green. You know, so you've got this real up and down, this real, you know, range within League One, but certainly the top bit of all that we haven't had the experience of. So it's great. I mean, I'm absolutely loving it, but it's hard work.
Hard work, but it's the hard work we wanted. It's the hard work we wanted after last season. Yeah,
and, you know, with the players, it was interesting on Saturday when we were watching Cambridge, because there was a lot of players playing who had been there last season. So in many ways, it was just like watching last season's team again. I mean, there was some new additions, but there was some, you know, stalwarts that were always in the team last season. And so the players have got the challenge of how do they step up from being a League Two player to a League One player. But then that then goes to every department. How do we all step up to being League One steady, I call it. League One steady before we become Championship ready. Because everybody sort of jumped on to me saying Championship ready. And as I pointed out to Flickr, I wasn't saying Champions League ready, I was saying Championship ready. But I recognise we've got to be League One steady first, and that's what we're aiming for, League One steady.
We're aiming for League One steady, and as we sit down, we are coming in off the back of back-to-back away wins in League One for the first time since February, March 2015. So in terms of getting League One steady, we're doing quite well.
We're doing very well. You know, I'm really pleased with what we're doing. And you can always tell by the feedback that you get from away directors when you're in their boardrooms. And the feedback I've had at Derby, they were it's through gritted teeth, you know when they're saying it, but they were also very genuine about us as a club going there, as a club overall, but also, you know, I mean, our supporters at Derby, I mean, you were there, I mean, weren't they amazing? Brought tears to your eyes. I was so proud of them. But it was a little bit like a replay of Wembley, because it was roughly the same number of people, but it was all full, and they just did not stop. And they were League One fans, you know, and they deserve the success that we're now getting. But what really pleased me on Saturday was because I saw the gaffer just before we left for the hotel, and he told me what the team was. And I said, you know, okay, how do you feel about that? And he says, it's a winning team, how are we going to win? And he was just so, you know, no, we're going to win. And we did, you know, and it was the belief in every player as you got onto that pitch. They all knew we were going to win.
How much different is it for you this season? Last season, it felt like as a whole club, we had this joint, this is a team. We believe, I think we all believed in them. We knew something was going to happen. What's the difference this year? Because it feels like, not that there isn't the belief, but we're more relaxed when we go into, I think it's less panicky when we go into games. We're more kind of oh, okay, let's just see what happens. Let's enjoy it. It feels like we're enjoying the moment more. Is that the same for you?
I think that's fair to say, yes. I think that belonging and all being together is still paramount. And it's been wonderful to see the new players come in and how they have settled into the group and how the group are still very much a belonging group. And I mean, I spoke to one of the players the other day, and he was saying how much he's enjoying his football, and he hasn't enjoyed his football this much for a long time. So he's one of the new players that's come in. And because he felt that he really belonged, he felt he could be himself. And all the things that we've set to do, he was giving me an acknowledgement, an endorsement that we were getting it right, that players can come here and they can be themselves, and that they can, that they are part of a group, you know. And you can tell on a Friday night when we stay away, you know, the gaffer's now into bingo, his own version of bingo that he makes up, and we all have to do a different call out for the winning line. And this week it was happy birthday Meepo, but you have to do it with gusto, because if you don't do it with gusto you don't win. And but they're really relaxed, and you know, and I talk to all the players, and they are. But I think that there's now a belief within the club. Before, we had to prove that we could do it. Now we know we can do it. Now we just have to do more of it, if you like. Because I remember saying to the gaffer on the morning of Wembley when we had a long walk, and not as long as he tells everybody it was. He tells everybody it was a 5 or 6 mile walk. It wasn't, but it was probably 3. But in that, I remember saying to him, we've got to be successful at some point, because we do run this club differently to most other clubs, and you have to be successful on the pitch, because otherwise people will say, oh, you're too soft with the players, and we're not too soft with the players, you know, and we don't overlook after them or anything. You know, we treat them as people, and we look after their families, and we look after everything we can so that they can go onto the pitch and really focus on what they're doing without having anything else in their mind. But I wanted to prove that is successful on the pitch. Wembley did, you know. I mean, I could just watch that Wembley match over and over again, because they were everything we'd set out to create, and now we've got to take that up to the next step. But it's taken the whole club up to the next step. And, you know, we listen to the feedback we get about match days. We listen to the feedback of stuff that we aren't getting right. That's never our intention. We're never complacent about that. We always want to improve. It's just very difficult to improve so many things at the same time. But things have improved. And I think sometimes we've got to look down the mountain at how far we've climbed up, not just keep looking how far we've still got to climb. And we climbed the League 2 mountain, and now we're at base camp starting to climb the League 1 mountain, and we'll do it, but we'll do it properly. And there's going to be, you know, bumps in the road, but when we encounter those, we encounter them together. And you know, I've got this really big thing that for Flicker and the gaffer, their job is to get us 3 points on the pitch. For everybody else in the club, our job is to help get us 3 points on the pitch. So everything that we can do as a football club that helps the team to get 3 points on a pitch. And I put that same plea out to the fans, because we know the difference that the fans make. The fans at Cambridge, I mean, all 770, whatever it was of them, you know, again, they just sang and cheered and shouted throughout. And it makes the difference.
On the fans, one of the things I wanted to talk about was just how important, we know how important, especially our fans, the Vale fans, they are the DNA of this club. We live and breathe the fans. We're in the local area, just how important they are. we've had, you mentioned there, the Cambridge away following, the Derby away following, but this year at home is the highest average league attendance since 97, 98.
Yeah.
They're getting involved, they're backing you, they're backing the club, they're backing their team.
Yeah.
And you mentioned there helping with 3 points. There's no better start than hearing that atmosphere at Vale Park on a Saturday, or even hearing the away fans sometimes out singing the home fans when we're travelling.
Yeah.
That's a huge part in what we're building at the club, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's about the fans. It's always been about the fans. And you remember when we first got here and I talked about the Eusters. I'm a Vale fan. Do you come to the ground, to the games? No, I used to. Well, we're now getting the Eusters coming back in, and we want to grow the fan base, but we want to grow it because people want to come. But I want to grow it by encouraging the Vale fans, the Eusters and the Vale fans, the faithfuls, to come in because they like what we're producing. But also, I want to create football fans. I don't want to, I want to increase the number of people that come to every one of our match. That isn't by going and converting football fans from other clubs. Everybody has their own club, and that's absolutely fine. What I really want to do is to work with the local community to show people that football is really good entertainment. It's really good family thing to do on the weekend. So that means making this more and more of a family club, making sure that we can keep families warm and dry, and so that parents don't have to worry about their kids. So that's really what I do. I want to get into, if you look at the landscape of Stoke-on-Trent, there's a lot of areas within there, and I don't mean geographical, I mean cultural. There's a lot of people that don't consider coming to a football match, whereas actually, that sense of belonging that we all get, there's areas where they would really find benefits from being part, and they do find it on a non-match day by coming into all the wonderful work that Port Vale Foundation and Best Cura do. It's amazing. Every day we've got people from the community coming in and getting support from the club, which we should. But why not come on a match day? Why not come and be part of the big thing that we're creating, which is on their behalf, and that they can get that sense of belonging, that sense of purpose from football. It's not what people often think, and I've had people come to matches and they go, oh, I didn't expect it to be like this, because they see the Premier League and all the rest of it, and they, that isn't us. Maybe one day. Who knows? But it isn't today. That isn't what we're about. It's very much about the community and entertaining them, supporting them, and being there for them.
You mentioned that we've got a competition which is a good starting point for fans, the FA Cup. Drawing a home tie against a team that feels like we play them every other month at this point, Exeter City. We're looking forward to welcoming them back to Vale Park, of course. Again, fans love the FA Cup. We've seen yourselves, especially in the years that you've had the club, twice in round 3, twice Premier League opponents, one in an unforgettable Manchester City, and then Brentford coming to us recently after being promoted to the Premier League. How important are the cup competitions such as the FA Cup, such as the Papa Johns? Again, we've seen debutants from the academy, the prize money that's involved, and the chance to go to Wembley. It's a real chance to go to Wembley again. We've got the taste for it now. How important are those cup competitions for you and for the club from a footballing point of view, but also financially for the club?
Let me take them in the two cups. So the FA Cup, I mean, there's a fairy tale feel about the FA Cup, isn't there? It's that opportunity that everybody has, that they could one day end up at Wembley, and that you could, you go to other clubs. I mean, I was at Cambridge yesterday and I was talking to them about when they played Manchester United and they held them to an 0-0 draw and then they beat them, you know, and it's huge and it goes down into folklore. Our Man City game is in folklore, and it was wonderful to take Port Vale and say to their chief operating officer that he hadn't given us enough tickets. And he said, Carol, I gave you 8,000. And I said, yeah, but we're Port Vale, you only gave us 8,000. And so to have that, to be there by right, was amazing. And I really hope, Exeter, what is it with Exeter? We always seem to get Exeter. There always seems to be part of our story every season with Exeter. And of course, you know, we had the last game there, which is where we secured our position in the playoffs. Sadly stopped them being champions, and so they came second. But you know, I did keep pointing out to them, you've still been promoted, you know, cheer up. And then of course we went there for the first away game this season where it wasn't so good, but I did say to them, look, I'm giving you that because we did stop you being champions, but however, that's it now, you know, slate's clean, off we go. And I'm really pleased they're coming to us rather than us going to them. And we will just go and do our best. You know, it's another game that we're going to, you know, do everything we can to win because we want to be in the next round. And there is, you know, definitely good funding for the club the more that you go up in the FA Cup. So we'll be doing what we can. Papa John's is an interesting one. I've got a real thing about Papa John's because there's so much debate about whether Papa John's is a good thing or not, whether it's the right format, whether there should be under 21s. And so many fans vote with their feet by boycotting it, and they boycott the competition. And that, you know, is something that I would like to debate more because for me, we are part of the EFL. We are privileged to be one of the 72 clubs that's part of the EFL. And therefore, we have an obligation to play in every competition that they organise. But it's a member-led organisation, so every club has a vote in what we do and what we don't do. So it isn't anything imposing. It isn't an organisation, it's not the EFL or anybody else imposing a competition on us. 72 clubs have voted for it. Now, they've put the under-21s in there, and this is the bit that really upsets people. But for me, you take that competition away, the whole debate about the competition. We scout under-21 teams all the time. So Tommy Johnson is always at under-21 teams matches. Number one, so under-21s is really, really important part of the game. That's part of the development, the part of the pathway for good players. So you have that. If you've got a big squad like we have, you want to keep them playing games. You want to keep match minutes in their legs, and particularly at the beginning of a season. So Darryl and Andy Crosby will go and organise what they call bounce games, where we will go to another club or they will come here, usually for an under-21s game, and so that we can play. What Papa John's does is actually just put that into an organisation that you get that. So we had a game against Wolves under-21s. That gave a really good competition. There's some good players in there. So you're getting a game against a good set of players. You're giving your players a really good run out. Darryl and I went to watch Tranmere versus Leeds under-21s. And again, that was, you know, really good for us to see players that are coming up through the Leeds Academy. So from inside the football industry, it's a really, really good thing to do. Now, I get it from the fans' point of view. They see it as the thin end of the wedge and League Three and everything else, and, oh, you know, we're going to get taken over. Whereas I don't see it like that. And when people boycott it, they're boycotting Port Vale and they're boycotting the team, really, if you really look at, So we had 1,000 came into the Wolves match. And I did look on social media, and it was really quite vehement against it and against the people who'd gone and, oh, this is 1,000 too many. And I thought, well, no, for me, no, because we got 10 grand for winning the game, so that was good, all helps. We didn't make any money, it cost us some money because it's boycotted. And we've got everybody in Lawn Street, so we did get a good atmosphere in there. But the more people you get, the better the atmosphere. So we did miss out on that. And if you look at what we achieved, we're the only club in the country in the competition to have got clean sheets throughout. So good old Aidan Stone, because he was, he did all 3 matches there. And they were really good matches, Shrewsbury. But the other big thing it gave us was the opportunity to give a debut to our academy players, which we did, and also to give more minutes to our academy players. So for me, the time to really, if we wanted to change that competition, it's at a time when it's up for debate and it's up for renewal. Whereas when we're in it, we're in it. So, and as I said earlier, our job is to make sure that whenever we can, we go out and win. And that includes Papa John's, if we play friendly, we want to win. Whatever we do, we want to win. So, I would encourage people to come. Because, that is our best opportunity for getting to Wembley. And I'm not saying we will this season, but, I'd hate to think people boycotted Wembley, because we know what a brilliant experience that could be. So that's my little plea for Papa John's, or whatever, whoever the sponsor is, because it's not Papa John's, because it was Checkatrade before, wasn't it? It is the format of the competition. But for me, I can see real benefits in it. I can see the draw, I can see what people are saying, but we do benefit from it.
You mentioned the academy players. 3 under-18s players have made their debuts in that tournament. James Pant, Rhys Walters, and Jack Shorrock, who obviously became the youngest ever player to play for Port Vale. That must have been a special moment to have that kind of, to witness that, the youngest ever player under your ownership as well, of all time of Port Vale, and to see just how well he fit in a men's game. He's going, it's the most normal thing to happen.
Do you know the nicest thing about it is that whenever we've got a debut or a potential debut, because there's nothing to say that they're definitely going to get onto the pitch, but certainly if we're winning and there's that space, then they will always get a game. It's their parents, their family. So we've made a bit of a rule that whenever there's a potential debut, we have their family with us in the boardroom. And so they get to experience it really nice. But we get to experience them. So Jack Shorrock's dad at Shrewsbury was amazing. I mean, it just makes you so happy for them to be part of that journey. And I always have this thing with, I had it with the first team when we went to Wembley. I said exactly the same thing to them, but I say it to academy players' parents, how many miles have you driven your son around over the years? How many miles? How many hours have you sat in a cold car while they've been training on a Tuesday or Wednesday night or whatever? How much of, the other siblings being deprioritised because, he's so good and, and it's his passion and, we're all, as a family, we are committed to that person playing football. And this is with everybody. I actually went to the Robbie concert last week and I ended up talking to Harry Maguire's mum, Zoe, who's lovely, absolutely lovely. And she's got Harry, she's also got Lawrence, who plays for Chesterfield. And even talking to, you look at that point, it's so easy to forget that started with parents driving around and supporting their son and daughters now, a lot more, but in that day was son. So to be part of their journey and such a significant part of it, you know, and I remember with Tommy McDermott when he had his as well, you know, and when we signed him, we actually, you know, signed him with his family there, and I mean, there was just tears of joy all round. So it's lovely, and it's the football career pathway that we you know, looking to develop, and to see boys by right being there because they are really good. And you know, it says a lot for what Will Ryder and his team are doing with the academy, to give these boys the opportunity. But yeah, no, it's so proud. Yeah, it's good.
Finally, before we let you go and, you know, do your actual job and run the football club rather than sitting and talking to me all day, for which I can apologise. Let's talk about the loyalty scheme. It's a new scheme that has been brought in by the club this year to alleviate some of the issues that we faced with high priority away games, such as Derby that we've just had. And it's also a way to reward fans kind of as they travel to the games, as they come to separate games around the season. We recently just had the first double points fixture. There is plans for that going forward at the next cup game, which would be the FA Cup match against Exeter City as well. Talk to us about the reward scheme and how important that will be going forward for the club, to show our thanks to fans.
Yeah, I mean, as I've mentioned, taking feedback has been really important to us, and acting upon it where we can and where we can see that there's an issue. One of the big shocks that I had when we first took over the club was to see people queuing for away tickets and see that down the road sort of thing. And I really hadn't expected that. And I do remember saying, are you going to do this for a Cold Tuesday at Carlisle? You know, which they don't. And particularly when we had Man City in the Cup away, I remember having those first conversations with Colin as to how we were going to do tickets. And we knew that whatever we did, we weren't going to get it right. And it was a case of what could we learn from, you know, do our very, very best endeavours, and then, you know, find out what we could learn from it, which is what we did. And the repeated feedback that we kept getting every time there was a much sought after match was about, you know, if it goes over the number of season ticket holders that you've got, then how do you make sure, you know, you value all your season ticket holders? That is absolutely a given, because they are the absolute backbone of the club, and they have grown hugely whilst we've been here, for which we're very grateful. But within that, you have fans who do travel every week. You see them every week, every match day. I see them every match day. You know, we know who they are. They're the same people. They're on the team, the supporters coach, the main one. They're on the, you know, what was Charlie Holland's and now Paul Dixon's running it, the fun buses. You know, and there can be loads of those buses going. And they, you know, there was 2 went to Cambridge. You know, so how do we make sure that people who are doing that, people that are spending money in the shop, how do we make sure that they don't miss out when it comes to a match tickets? Yeah, and so we talked about all different ways, and so one of the things that we did is to bring ticketing online. Because I said, look, we're either going to have to have electrical hookups because we're becoming a camping site, or we're going to have to, you know, find some scheme where they don't have to queue overnight. And so going online was the way to do that. So we invested in the ticketing system. Part of the thing with us, though, as you would expect, we don't just buy in a ticketing system and run it at 10% of its capacity. We blow its banks, you know, every time. So Ian Lewis, who's the technical director for Synectics, his part-time job is is making sure that we stay online. So we have had issues with that, and I do apologise, but that is us pushing the boundaries. But we have had it sometimes when, early on in the season, getting through the turnstiles has been an issue, and so he's had to also improve our Wi-Fi capacity, what have you. So anything you want to do, because we're not a brand new modern stadium, it's like buying an old house, it's like buying an old family pile sort of thing. Everything you want to do has a knock-on effect in areas. So it's important to us that season ticket holders are really looked after, that people who really support the club as much as they can, that they're looked after, but also, that we do reward. And I know people were questioning, well, why did we reward Papa John's, for example? Well, we did so in part because Papa John's isn't covered in your season ticket, so everything in your season ticket automatically goes onto the loyalty card, whereas the cup matches aren't. So it wasn't a Papa John's decision, it was a cup decision. And so, right, we'll make sure that all cup matches are double points, because that then encourages people to come into that, to get the points for that. And it's just a way of saying thank you, really. And that, the more that we can recognise the support that we get from our fans. I can go on social media or go on interviews like this and say that I'm grateful as much as I like, but you also want ways of showing that. We have a team that show it on the pitch, and they genuinely do, and they genuinely care about our supporter base. But also as a club, I really felt it was important. But we're not going to get it right every time, but heaven knows we're going to try. And if we don't, we take the feedback and we just keep getting better and better until we're championship ready, whenever that happens.
Carol, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.